the In My Feelings podcast, where we talk about our deepest feelings about movies, TV, and more. I'm Nia.
And I'm Becca. And today we're going to be talking about the 2019 live-action remake of Aladdin. Oof.
Another good one by Disney.
It was a movie that we watched. We really did watch it.
And what's different about this movie is that me and Becca actually saw it together.
In person!
Yeah, in person. That's not going to happen for the rest of these movies.
Yeah, that'll happen once in a blue moon.
Right? Too expensive to see each other right now.
Yeah, it's a lot. So, let's do non-spoiler talk? I would say that there can't be spoilers due to the original having been made in 1992 before either of us were even born.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen that, it's your own fault. Like, you've had plenty of time to see it, and I'm pretty sure they've only changed a couple things for the worse. So if you've seen the original, you basically know what the plot of this one is.
They did change a couple of things. So let's do some non-spoilery talk. My biggest takeaway was that of the many, many, many problems with this movie, Will Smith was not the issue.
Right? I thought he was going to be.
In what was genuinely a huge surprise, Will Smith was not the one to drag this sucker down.
Although it really does take a lot to make you hate Will Smith in a movie. Like, it takes a very untalented writer and director to make you dislike Will Smith.
Ooh, After Earth. Ooh.
Didn't he direct that himself?
Look, a lot happened with After Earth. He was trying to be irritating so that we would like Jaden more, but Jaden was annoying. Look, a lot happened there. Will Smith was given an impossible task. This role was written for Robin Williams, specifically with his style of stand-up comedy in mind. And so giving this role to any other actor, anyone, is a hard sell. If they had given it to Jim Carrey, it would have been strange. If they had given it to, I can't think of anyone, like David Coulier maybe, it would have been strange. Will Smith was not the problem of this movie. For my money, the problem with this movie is that the only people of color involved in making it were the actors. And it shows. It shows that the director of photography, the costume director, the makeup artist, all of these folks were more white than not.
Yes, after we rammed or raked through all of the people associated with the movie who are not on screen. I don't know if that's the biggest issue with the movie, because I didn't look at the people who were involved with the original movie, but there are issues with it, but there wasn't the same issues.
For example, this isn't spoilery. You've seen the trailers, you've seen the photographs. The costuming. The costuming was a big problem for me because it was all styled as if it was fictional Saudi Arabia, but with English style, with the big bell sleeves and cotton everything. And if the costume designer had been Indian or Pakistani or Arab or North African or any number of nationalities besides American and white, the costuming would have been way better. Similarly with the director of photography, everyone was shot to appear lighter than they actually are, which is, gross, to say the least.
Yes, we both noticed that. I don't remember Will Smith being that light. I don't know if they put like a filter on top of the entire movie, but at least as far as skin tone goes, I know sometimes it's hard because if you do have certain lighting, some people who do have darker complexions can appear to have a lighter complexion. And most of this did take place in the brightest daylight in the middle of a desert. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering how much of it had to do with the lighting and how much of it had to do with them changing it. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and assume I don't think they cared enough to lighten everybody up.
I don't know. Nasim Pedrad she's lighter skinned, but she's not white. And in this movie, she looks white. It's a lot.
I mean, she's very light to begin with.
It's true, but she's not that light. She's got olive skin. And in this movie, especially when they put her up next to Naomi Scott, she looks properly white, like extremely pale. The way they photographed everyone. And the thing is, Nia, when you're shooting in full desert sunlight, you and I both know this as like, I'm more medium dark and you're properly dark. But between the two of us, we both know that when you're taking photographs in full sunlight, you don't look lighter. You look browner. Not darker, but browner. And so whatever they did to make everybody look more pale that was a choice. They chose to shoot it that way. They did also choose to cast medium light folks. Like medium light to fully light folks. But they also chose to shoot them so that they would look even lighter.
Yeah, I think I have an issue with the casting choice on that one. But since I feel like I don't know what their intent was while shooting, I can't for sure say myself whether they chose to shoot it where everyone looked lighter or it just happened to end up that way with whatever method or camera or lighting they were using during shooting.
I mean, perhaps I'm being cynical, but my reflex is to assume that their purpose was to make everybody look good. And in the pursuit of making them look good, they made them look light.
Trying to be positive. Try to think that that's not what their intention was.
I mean, we'll leave this to you listeners. Like, if you see this movie, if you're a person of color, like, how do you feel about the way they were shot? How do you feel about the way that they were portrayed as people of color? The costuming really bothers me. Could they not Google what Arab clothes look like? Was Google not invented 2 years ago when they made this movie? Seriously.
I know, we Googled, I forgot what we Googled. We Googled like Arab clothing and the first stuff that came up did not look anything like what was in the movie.
Now, I read online that some people were irritated that Naomi Scott was cast because she is half Indian and she is not of Arab descent. That by casting her, Disney was making a statement that they weren't willing to distinguish between Pakistani, Indian, and Arab folks. And to that I say, no duh, what? Where have you been for the last 20 years? What?
They've been done that. Mulan.
Of course Disney wasn't willing to distinguish. That's the whole point. Disney makes one princess for each massive group of people of color. Mulan is for everyone in East Asia. Japan, Korean, Vietnamese, doesn't matter. Mulan. Jasmine is for the entire Middle East and also India and Pakistan. If you're Indian, Jasmine is your princess. If you're Pakistani, Jasmine is your princess. If you're Saudi, Jasmine is your princess. If you're Israeli, Jasmine is your princess. The Princess and the Frog, Tiana, is for every black person alive. The entire continent of Africa, along with all the black folks who are not living in Africa. They all share one princess. Whereas every European country has between 1 and 2. So all the people complaining that Naomi Scott is half Indian and not half Saudi or half Iranian are wrong, because I don't know about you, but we've all known since the dawn of time itself that Agrabah, the fictional land of Agrabah, while being in Saudi Arabia and being drawn from the 1001 Nights, is actually a fictional mixture of India, Pakistan, and the entire Middle East. So, for the record, that is not the problem. Of the problems, that was not the one.
I'm more mad they couldn't even cast a full Indian or Pakistani or Arab person.
Now, I will say this. Being of mixed heritage doesn't make you less Indian. Being mixed doesn't make her not own the birthright of being Indian. She is Indian. What being mixed does make her is white passing. And Disney, in casting her, has made a choice to say that Princess Jasmine, the princess for all of these nations, is white passing. And in so doing, they have staked their claim once again that in order to be beautiful and to be a princess, you must be white passing. Now, the truth is, historically, rich folks were always lighter skinned. That is why in every culture, no matter where you go, colorism is prevalent. Because the richer you are, the less you have to go outside. Poor folks have to work in the fields, they get darker. Rich folks stay in the castle, they don't have to go outside, they are lighter. And sure, for the sake of historical accuracy, you can say that yes, Princess Jasmine would have been much lighter. And to that I say, why didn't they let Mina Masood have a tan? Because a street rat stealing to eat and living outside in what I will admit is a dope set piece that doesn't have a real roof proof, he would be dark. So if you want to claim historical accuracy, the knife cuts both ways. You can't have both of them be super light. Instead, what they've chosen to do is be, admittedly, more faithful to the original cartoon and cast more light folks in their movie. Now, maybe you can make the argument that this is supposed to be Saudi Arabia. Scheherazade is a Arabian character. The 1001 Nights are Arabian myths. Fine. But given that this world exists in a fictional place, why? Why is that the historical accuracy we're clinging to when instead you can show up and represent young girls everywhere? Ever since you're a child, you know you don't look like Princess Jasmine. She's much lighter than you. So why not take the opportunity now to do something a little different? Because it's Disney, and Disney doesn't actually care.
Right. Even in the cartoon, the facial features
were white. They modeled Aladdin after Tom Cruise.
They did?
What, you didn't know that? Yeah, it's like his smile. Like, that's why it's like a little crooked and a little weird.
I mean, the smile is one thing, but like...
The point is they modeled these characters not off of Arab folks or Indian folks or Pakistani folks. They modeled them after white people. And so by sticking to their models...
When I was a kid, the first thing I did notice is that their noses were more round. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I've seen people with brown complexions that have that nose.
They did do a little bit.
It was at least better in the cartoon in that regard. A little bit.
Well, the cartoon had a lot of problems. Admittedly, the most Arab-looking person in the cartoon was Jafar, and he was the villain. They villain-coded the most ethnic-looking person, and that's a problem, certainly. But they've also sort of kept that up, because in making everybody so incredibly light, it's kind of a lateral move.
No, you're right.
Jafar he might not be the darkest person. He's also still quite light, like he's more Arab looking.
In my memory of the movie, of the cartoon movie, everyone seemed tanner and at least more representative of, I guess if we generalize the Middle East, including India, it seemed it was closer to what they were trying to get to than what it was when they remade it now, based off my memory of what I have from the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they were trying their best to make sure all the actors were properly of Arab descent, but these all seem like excuses to me to make everybody as light-skinned as possible, because historical accuracy goes all the way out the window very quickly. I mean, talking parrot, genie, is the lightness of the actors really the hill that we are trying to fight and die on? There's a genie.
No.
He's blue. Historical accuracy is no longer a compelling argument when you're in a fantasy world.
I think what people might start getting at least with the race side, is representation. Why are they not representing or accurately representing what most people look like from the area they're trying to depict?
Yeah. You see a lot of extras who are darker skinned. You see a lot of black extras. There's a lot of international feel. And maybe they are accurately representing people from the Arab Peninsula or the Middle East. But Disney has to know that Aladdin isn't just for Saudi Arabia. When they made it, they knew that they were going to do it for such a huge swath of people. Pretending that one day they'll make an Indian princess and it'll be different from Princess Jasmine is a fantasy. It's never gonna happen. I mean, maybe it'll happen one day in the future, but I'm not gonna hold out for it myself. They've already made Aladdin, and they made Aladdin for all of us. So that when they made Frozen, and they gave us a Netherlands princess, that's fine. They did Aladdin already. And when they made Tangled, and remade Rapunzel, that was fine. We already had one for black people. We did The Princess and the Frog. I mean, there's accuracy and there's just being realistic. And realistically speaking, Disney knows that they don't intend to make a Pakistani princess. They don't intend to make a Indian princess. They don't intend to make an Iranian or a Turkish princess. They knew full well going in that Aladdin is their one shot for this massive group of people. And they chose to make everybody as light as possible.
Where I think the real issue lies is that you have to look at the whole Disney company too. I don't think there's a lot of people of color in any leadership positions to spearhead getting more specific cultural princesses or movies made about these niche cultures. And so if it's mostly Caucasian people, they're going to make more of what they know.
That's true.
And they don't have the burden of having someone in their ear like, maybe you should go more detailed. Like, maybe you should make an African princess. Maybe you should make a specific Indian princess from one of the many fairy tales they have there. They don't have anyone that's reminding them to do that, so they're not going to.
And this goes back to the film having a mostly white production crew. It is amazing. It's awesome that we have so many actors of color. I'm so glad that Naomi Scott got cast and we have Indian Princess Jasmine. I'm so glad that Mina Masood got cast and we have an Egyptian Aladdin. I'm honestly glad that Will Smith got cast and we got to have a black genie. But everyone else was still white. And this just shows the problem in Hollywood. Representation isn't just putting people on the screen. It's putting them behind the scenes too. It's not enough to have a female lead. You need to have women writers and women directors. It's not enough to have an Egyptian person on screen. You need to have an Arab person doing costuming or a Turkish person doing the hair and makeup. It's doing piecemeal on screen is not enough. And it's a step in the right direction. And I don't want to say it's not. It is absolutely a step in the right direction. But we are nowhere near the finish line.
That I wholeheartedly agree with. We're super far from the finish line, but we're not at the very beginning.
Yeah, we've taken 2 steps. We're on our way.
Yep, we are maybe a foot away from the finish or from the starting line and maybe 2 miles away from the finish.
But you know what? They cast brown folks and in the original, they didn't. So that's something. But it's not enough. Shall we go into spoiler territory?
One other thing that we can probably talk about that's non-spoilery at least was the animals. Just a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
They're not really spoilery. They exist in the movie.
Yeah. I love Alan Tudyk. He's amazing. But his performance as Iago was a little lackluster. Now, I don't blame him. I blame the script. In order to make this more quote-unquote realistic, they've taken Iago, who was a full-fledged character in the original film, and made him just sort of a pet that squawks periodically.
I thought he was so freaking annoying in this movie.
Well, he wasn't a character. He was just sort of there. At least in the original one, he was a character, He had a personality, he had opinions, he had thoughts, and he had an impact on the plot. Here, he's just sort of an animal who periodically says stuff.
At convenient times.
Just conveniently says things. And it was very similar with Abu. Abu was also this time just sort of an animal who does stuff that's convenient to the plot but has no personality to speak of. Now, I know it's harder because they have to render these animals photorealistically this time, but what bothers me is that they did it piecemeal. Rather than just making them animals, they gave them a little bit of their original personality, but not a lot. And I think that's what's so weird about it, is that they're partially the way they were, partially real characters with motivations and actions, and partially they're just little plot conveniences running around doing things that are convenient to the plot.
I personally think the carpet had more personality than any of these animals combined.
I agree. They did a great job with the carpet. I'll say that. I thought the carpet was great.
Anti-speaking part was the best non-human role in this movie.
And Raja was about as boring as Raja always is, but that's because Raja was boring in the original.
Yeah, I don't think Raja had much of a personality to begin with.
No, he was just a scary tiger.
Yep, and he stayed a scary tiger.
Mm-hmm. It's just hard to go from Gilbert Gottfried and his performance as Iago as this sassy, sardonic, hilarious parrot to this parrot that just sort of is a plot convenience, It's not because Alan Tudyk is incapable. He's certainly capable. That's the worst part about it. It's not that he couldn't, it's that they didn't let him.
I think in their attempt to make it live action, they also tried to go more realistic. And they're like, well, animals don't really say full sentences, so we're just going to have this one be like an actual parrot. Kind of recites short phrases.
Carpets don't really fly, and genies don't actually exist. And there is not a cave that speaks and eats people. So I really don't understand what they think their excuse is. It was just frustrating.
I forgot how much I liked the original Iago performance because I looked up some clips. I was like, oh my God, he was really funny.
Gilbert Gottfried was funny. He was great as Iago. And the thing is, Alan Tudyk is funny. Alan Tudyk certainly could have done it. If they had let him, he could have done a great job, but they didn't. And that's on the writing. The writers did that. Alan Tudyk did not do that.
Agreed.
Shall we go to spoilers?
Yes, we can go to spoilers, but what part do we want to start with? The beginning? Or do we want to start with characters themselves?
You know what? Let's start with Billy Magnuson, because I think this is a good segue from our conversation of about the animals. They added an extra 38 minutes of runtime, I believe. Yes, it's 38 minutes because it went from a 90-minute movie to a 128-minute movie. And for my money, every minute that they added was wasted. They didn't add anything that was interesting or valuable.
We thought they were going to, and then they didn't.
For example, they gutted Iago's character, and so they cut time by removing an entire character and making him just a parrot who periodically says words, as parrots are wont to do. And then they replaced him with, for example, Billy Magnuson's character. Now, Billy Magnuson plays a Swedish prince, and going back to our conversation about realism and how you can't use realism to justify what they've done with making all the actors in this film lighter skinned, the way they justified it was something Silk Road something. And I don't know how to explain to them that the Silk Road runs east-west, not north-south. So there's no reason for a Swedish prince to arrive in Saudi Arabia, or what is now Saudi Arabia. A Chinese prince would have made sense. That would have played. A Greek prince would have played. An African prince would have played. A Roman prince would have played. Pretty much anything would have worked, but they went with Swedish because it was a funny accent?
Maybe.
Now, Billy Magnuson is very funny. He is very charming, and I laughed at his character. But I also think that his character was a waste of time that we could have applied in other places.
Yeah, he didn't do anything with the plot.
At all. He showed up, we had 10 minutes of him speaking in a funny accent. Then later, we had 10 more minutes of him speaking in a funny accent.
I think he was there to portray how Jasmine felt like she was being used as someone to be sold off.
Certainly.
But we already knew that from her interacting with her father. So we didn't need this additional prince to instill that more.
I agree. And frankly, the original film did that same thing. They had the same bit with what looked like a much lighter prince, except the original movie did it in about tight 30 seconds. You don't need all this time. He was just there to be comic relief, which was strange because everybody in this movie is funny. Why did we need comic relief prince when Mina Masood is already really funny and charming? And Will Smith is already really funny. And Nassim Pedrad was really funny. It was unnecessary. It was also anachronistic. Anyone who ever tries to use historical accuracy as an excuse for what they've done here can take Billy Magnuson and walk away because there's no historical accuracy there. I'm not saying there would be no Europeans in Saudi. I'm saying there would be Southern Europeans, not Swedish. You know what the Nordic folks were doing? They were sailing the other way to the Americas. That's what the Norsemen were doing. They weren't coming south to Saudi.
I also want to add that in that 38 or however many minutes they added was probably the one part, which I'm skipping right in the movie, of course. The part where they banished Aladdin to Antarctica or wherever, somewhere cold, which in my mind, Aladdin shouldn't have made it to the end of the movie because I don't know how far that was supposed to be. And so we got wasted time with him coming back. And it literally, they used that time to show he's in Antarctica and then they did nothing with it because he was immediately back in the city.
Yes. You know what? There's a lot to unpack there. Why don't we start from the beginning of the movie and this dumb framing device that they've imbued? This is the worst 38 minutes they could have added. So the movie starts with the genie telling his two kids the story of Aladdin. And so they give us this whole framing device in order to justify the singing of the song Arabian Nights. And it was just a waste of time. Now, I'm on board with the idea that the trade-off for the genie's power is that he is not human. And so in freeing him, you would turn him human, someone who can make his own choices, right?
Right.
I'm down for that. But did we need that extra 5 minutes at the top of the film to justify that? Because I don't think we did. It was just a waste of time. Now, here we can talk about the censoring of the song lyrics.
Yes, you brought that up a a lot.
In Arabian Nights, there's a line that says, "It's barbaric, but hey, it's home." And in this version, they've changed it to, "It's chaotic, but hey, it's home." And I understand why they did that. That is a perfectly fine choice. I see what they're doing there. You don't want to portray the Middle East as being barbaric, fine. But that's not the only place where they changed lyrics, and in the other places, it got weird.
Yep, let's go to the opening where we first see Aladdin.
Let's talk about Aladdin. Now, Mina Masood is great. I just want to preface this by saying that Mina Masood is great. I wish him all the success in the world. He was so charming and delightful. He was great. But in the original film, Aladdin steals a loaf of bread in order to eat. And that's kind of the impetus to the whole plot. He's stealing to survive. It's a Jean Valjean situation. But in this movie, what they do is, in order to make him more ethical, they show him stealing from women who were trying to steal from him. Because honor among thieves, I guess. And it's not bad if he's stealing from other thieves, right? And then the movie shows him purchasing food. So when he steals, it's only from quote unquote bad people, other thieves, and he buys food. He doesn't steal food to live. Now, this is a very interesting choice because the entire song One Jump Ahead is talking about the fact that he needs to steal to eat to live. That's the whole point. He's got to be one jump ahead of the breadline because he needs to steal to eat. In fact, there's a whole line that says, "Gotta steal to eat, gotta eat to live. Tell you all about it when I have the time." But in this version, rather than placing One Jump Ahead at the top, what they do is they show Princess Jasmine giving away the bread, as they did in the original movie, and then they show Aladdin fake paying the bread vendor with her bracelet. Now, this bracelet ostensibly belongs to her dead mother, because that's a detail we cared about. And so when Aladdin stole this time, he stole to protect Jasmine. And the thing that he stole wasn't bread to feed himself, it was Jasmine's bracelet, which I think in the ethics of the film belonged to Jasmine. So they changed the line to say that it's not that he had to steal to eat to live, it's that he had to take the bracelet back, and he'll tell them all about it. Now, this leads to one of the strangest censoring in the movie. In the original film, there's a moment where Aladdin says, "It's just a little snack, guys." And the guards respond with, "Rip him open, take it back, guys." And yes, this is a bit morbid. They are talking about gutting him and retrieving the bread. However, in this version, Aladdin says something like, I don't remember what Aladdin says, but the response from the guards was, "Get the bag, guys," because Jasmine's bracelet was put into Aladdin's bag. And it's weird. It's a weird censoring because it changes the entire character of Aladdin. He's not a thief who steals to live. He's a thief who steals for honor. In fact, the two women he stole from in the beginning stole from him. And this time he's protecting Jasmine, who, because we as the audience know she's the princess, we know that he's ethically right to steal to protect her. Because apparently Disney forgot what nuance was somewhere between 2008 and today.
And I know we talked about this a little bit before the podcast, where when we go to see where Aladdin lives, he hides, or he has Abu hide the other stuff, which seems to be jewelry and stuff that I don't know who stole. Maybe Abu, maybe him. And I don't know what that means for him, because at first we were thinking maybe it was a more Robin Hood sort of thing. He steals when he needs to help other people. But I don't know what the implication is if he stole a whole bunch of other stuff and he didn't want Jasmine to see that he's stolen other things.
They also do this interesting thing where all the real bad theft, quote unquote bad theft, is done by Abu.
Yep.
There's a moment where Aladdin goes to give back the bracelet to Jasmine and she's like, "I knew you were nothing but a thief. You kept it." But it was Abu who kept it. And it's very strange because the ethical nuance of Aladdin was always, he was so poor that in order to live, in order to survive at all, he had to steal. He had to steal food to eat or he would die. But here, they're kind of trying to make him into a Robin Hood. But you're right, like, he doesn't want to show all the stuff he's stolen. It's very strange the way they frame Aladdin and his theft.
And I can't even think of a modern, or I can't think of the word, but I can't think of a reason why they would change it. It doesn't seem like PC-wise, there was no issue with it to begin with where he steals because he's poor. I don't have any more or less sympathy from him from the original character who stole to eat, from this character who steals to help people. He's still sympathetic regardless.
Right. I don't understand what they thought they were doing. Were they trying to make him more acceptable for the kids or something? He's still a thief. But I think that's also, I think part of it though is the movie is banking a lot on us knowing that Jasmine is a good person, because that opening scene where she just gives away the bread, really, the shopkeeper is justified in being angry that they have no money to pay.
Yeah, she stole from him, technically.
And especially because she is out in her bougie clothes with her gold bracelet all the way out of her sleeve, practically advertising to everybody around her that she's wealthy, but she can't pay. And so we have to take our knowledge that she's a good person into that scene with us, because otherwise she's an incredibly rich lady who doesn't want to pay for food.
Or apparently ignorant and didn't realize you have to pay for things because she's a privileged princess who's never left the castle, apparently.
I think that's in the original Aladdin. The idea was she didn't know, or she forgot. She thought she would just be able to say, I'm the princess, give it to me for free.
I mean, she was hiding her identity, so that was a horrible idea if that was what she was thinking.
It's hard. We have to know that Jasmine's a good person for that to play, because she really was broadcasting her wealth with that bracelet. Like, hello, I have this massive hunk of gold on my arm, but I'm not willing to give you 2 pennies to pay for the loaves of bread I've given away. And I have that problem with the way they've done Jasmine through the entire movie. Actually, like, the way they characterize Jasmine is very, very strange. But we'll get there as we go through the movie. But yeah, so their changes to One Jump Ahead change both Aladdin's story arc and Jasmine's. Because Jasmine, it's not that she didn't have money to pay or she didn't have jewelry to give. It's that the jewelry was her mom, so she couldn't give it away. And all that does is make her stupid for running into the poorest parts of her city wearing gold jewelry all over her.
I guess that continues to show her ignorance, or the fact that she's never left the castle.
Yes, but at the end of the movie, we're supposed to believe that she's a qualified ruler.
Oh heck no, not when you begin like that. You don't even know the basics of living. She almost did, but then the movie didn't go that way, and I'm still salty about it.
You know what? Let's talk about, forget going chronologically. Let's talk about Jasmine's story arc now. Jasmine starts out as this person who is so ignorant that she doesn't realize she'll get clocked as rich for wearing a gold bracelet into the poorest areas of the city. She doesn't realize she'd have to pay for food she's giving away. But we're meant to find out that she reads a lot and she loves the city. And so that makes her a good ruler on her own. Now, the film tries to do this girl power moment thing where we're supposed to be happy that Jasmine is the new sultan at the end because she's the rightful ruler and she'll be a good ruler. However, this movie does nothing to show me that she'd be a good ruler. It tells me she reads a lot of books, and she's read about the city, but when she goes into it, they actually make a big show about saying it multiple times that she's never been into the city. And there's a moment where she's talking with Dahlia where she says, it's horrible out there. If mom was alive, she'd be heartbroken, which demonstrates to me that under her father and ostensibly her by proxy rule, the poorer people of their city are getting poorer. Things are bad for the poor people under her father's rule. They establish this. But by the end of the movie, I'm meant to be all gung-ho. Yes, their family deserves to rule. They love the people of the city. And I just can't get behind that. The girl power moment that they give Jasmine is a moment where she chooses to speak up and she convinces the head of the royal guard to stay loyal to her and her father and not follow Jafar. Now, if you know anything about the story of Aladdin, Jafar asked to be the sultan, and so the royal guard is technically his royal guard. And so he then orders them attempt to arrest the old royal family. And Jasmine's big moment is she sings this whole song about how she won't be speechless and she's gonna speak up. And her big moment of speaking up is telling the head of the royal guard that he should remain loyal to her and her father. And she mentions this bit about, you were a poor basket weaver's son, and now look at you, you're the head of the royal guard. And essentially she's attributing that success to her and her father by saying, you know that we're the better rulers for this city. However, we've already established that things are terrible for the poor people in the city. Good ruler who? Good ruler where? At least in the original movie, they made a point to show that the Sultan, her father, was an idiot. Just dumb. And a bad ruler. And she was sneaking out to try and learn. But here, she meets Aladdin on her first time out of the city. And her father is apparently a competent ruler, not a total dum-dum. So her arc of saying, well, you bootstrapped yourself under our rule, so you should be loyal to us and not Jafar, who's obviously the bad guy, as evidenced by his costume change and his, snake stick.
Yep.
And it's just it's hard for me to get behind her as saying, that guy doesn't have the divine right to rule. I have the divine right to rule. You know this, poor guy who works for me. You need to respect my divine right to rule over his. And that's her big, I won't be speechless moment. Earlier you mentioned Aladdin getting banished to the Arctic.
Yes.
And that's, Jafar does that. After he asks to be the most powerful magician, he banishes Aladdin to the Arctic. Then Jasmine has her whole moment where, after convincing the royal guard to be on her side in a completely impotent act, Jafar banishes them all immediately to the dungeons with a wave of his magic hand.
Yep.
The way this is worked out in the film is that the genie sends the magic carpet to the Arctic, and, Aladdin gets back to Agrabah in what appears to be 1 to 2 hours time, somehow,
Yep.
on the carpet. But there was a moment at the wedding ceremony where Jasmine is looking at the lamp hanging on Jafar's belt. Now, she's seen him 2 times. They make a big show of it, of everybody watching as Jafar rubs the lamp and says, I wish, and blah, 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 and then his wish comes true. And for this split second, I definitely thought, and I think you thought too, that Jasmine was going to grab the lamp and make a wish, and that wish would help resolve the story. And that would be her real moment. She'd grab the lamp, make a wish, and she would be the hero. She would be the one who saved Aladdin from being in the Arctic. She would be the hero who brought down Jafar. And instead of that, they had her grab the lamp and then scream a while, and then Aladdin showed up and saved everybody.
The dumbest change in this entire movie, where we thought they were going to do something good, and then they shat all over the potential to make this movie so much better than it was.
I really did think they were gonna have Jasmine wish Jafar's power away and then wish Aladdin back, and then that would be the resolution. Like, Jasmine uses her 3 wishes, and then it would be a struggle for who's trying to get their wishes out first. And after Jasmine wish away his magic powers, that's what got Jafar to wish for the power of the genie, and it would be her to be the hero. Now, that would be a change I'm down for. She rescues Aladdin. She's the one who convinces Jafar to ask for the power of the genie, or they do it as a tag team. That would have been cool. That would have been a moment worthy of her dumb song, I Won't Go Speechless.
The worst song in the movie, also, everyone, didn't match the tone of any of the rest of the songs.
Yeah, it wasn't a Menken song, it wasn't a Rice song, and it wasn't an Ashman song. It was a Pasek and Paul song.
It was a pop song.
Now, Pasek and Paul, for those of you who know, wrote Dear Evan Hansen, and they did the music for The Greatest Showman, and they wrote the lyrics for City of Stars in La La Land. And they're good musicians, but their music is pop music. And so when they wrote this song, Speechless, it came out as a pop song. And so it didn't fit with any of the musical themes of any of the other songs. There was no reprise of the melodies. There was nothing. It was just, it felt totally extraneous to the film. Like, it really felt like they stole a song from somewhere else and they stuck it in this movie.
It was abrupt. And to be honest, I thought maybe, well, I guess since I'd heard the rest of the songs from the movie, it wasn't going to match, but it took me out of the movie. Like, I was okay with the movie up until that point where I was like, okay, they just had to shoehorn this whatever song into the movie just to, I don't know, have some modernization to add to like the soundtrack.
It really did pull me out of the movie as well because it felt completely extraneous. And after all of that nonsense, the payoff for that moment was her telling the guard to be loyal to her instead of Jafar. I really thought that the payoff was going to be her making a wish. I would have been perfectly happy with them changing the ending that way. Why is that the ending they decided to preserve? After doing all of this addition for Jasmine to have more agency, they still made her a damsel in distress who didn't really do anything of value. Because even after she convinced the royal guard to be on her side, Jafar just magicked them away. Her agency meant nothing in the scheme of the plot. They set it up so well with those long shots of her staring at Jafar as he made his wishes, but then she didn't get to make a wish. Aladdin wasn't there. He was banished to the Arctic. She could have wished him back. She could have done any number of things, but instead, they made her another damsel in distress. Rather than giving her an arc that was like smart and clever and interesting, they just added this extraneous moment that had no impact on the greater plot. That's why I say girl power moment with such disdain in my voice. It's not that I am against showing these female characters with agency and personalities and drive of their own. It's that the way they did it in this film was so half-baked that I couldn't get behind it. Because in the end, if you cut out all of her scenes with her song and all of those moments, it changes nothing about the plot. Nothing changes. They didn't actually give her agency. They gave her the appearance of agency.
Yeah, they contradicted themselves.
And the other part of it is that this is supposed to be the moment where we find out she's a good leader and deserves to have the throne. But wouldn't a good leader, it would have been so good if she had been the one to rescue everyone. Why is that the part we needed to be so precious about, that Aladdin needed to be the one to rescue everybody? They banished him so we could have this 5-minute song about how she won't go speechless.
And then it doesn't do anything to the plot.
Right, because he just flew back in 3 hours.
From what I get, Jasmine would be, she's a great scholar and a great, I guess, she's good at giving speeches. She's a great speaker.
They had this opportunity. They really did. They had this great opportunity to have her and Aladdin work together to save everyone and to show that between Aladdin's experience and her knowledge that they could, be good rulers. The problem is they didn't do any of that.
I also like to imagine that the guard that she asked to follow behind her and her family, that in his mind, he went through, okay, so we have Jafar, who's obviously the worst leader here. Then we have the status quo. Like, I'd rather not regress back into making things worse. So I'm just going to go back to what I know. And that's why he ended up going up with Jasmine and her family, because they had no good options.
Jafar hadn't done anything bad yet.
The way he was behaving...
He was being megalomaniacal, yes, absolutely. But he had yet to do anything
I thought everyone
actively
knew,
terrible.
at least everyone in the court knew that he wanted to start a war for some ungodly reason, which would have done nothing, would make everything worse.
Yeah, that was weird. At least 1992 Jafar was just like, I want to be all powerful. This guy is like, I want to start an empire for Agrabah. And it just felt really weird. This is again part of the realism-ish, the realism, the realisticifying. This is part of making the movie more realistic, and it's weird, and it didn't play.
No, it didn't.
I think you're right. I think for that guard, he would have been like, which of these two monarchs do I... Well, those guys weren't awful, so let's go back, as no sweat off my ass.
And then since we're on the end of talking about some of the changes they made that were dumb, can we talk about why Jafar asked to be the most powerful being and then was made into a genie instead of sticking with the original where he asked to specifically be a genie?
Yeah. It's like this movie thought we were dumber than the other movie by a lot, because this movie, okay, so in the original Aladdin, the genie at the beginning is like, you gotta be careful what you wish for, because if you say, make me a prince, I could just make you a prince, and he created a prince over there. And that got across to all of us at age 4 or 5 when we watched it, that the genie needed specific precise instructions, or he could pretty much have license to do whatever he wants.
Right.
You get to the climax of this movie. In the original, Aladdin essentially cons Jafar into wishing to be a genie. And the genie is like, ha ha ha, you thought it was good, it sucks. And he makes him a genie. And he gets trapped in the lamp and throws him away. Now in this one, the con is that it's a similar con from Aladdin, and then Jafar asks, make me the most powerful being on earth. And then Genie goes, well, there's a lot of gray area in that wish, and makes him a genie. As if we're too dumb to understand.
They use that a lot in this movie. They use the gray area since they couldn't think of a more clever way to have him get out of a predicament, they just use the gray area as an excuse.
Maybe they thought that Jafar was being foolish when he wished to be a genie, you know? And they were trying to solve the problem of Jafar's foolishness. Because yeah, it's kind of dumb to wish to be a genie. And maybe they thought, Jafar isn't that dumb. He would have known that genies get trapped in lamps. So he wouldn't wish to be a genie. He'd wish to be more powerful than a genie.
Yep.
Right? But this version is just as dumb. Make me the most powerful being on earth. He's already the most powerful magician? I don't know. It felt like in their desire to make it less silly, they treated the audience as if we were dumb.
When I was younger, I think I thought that Jafar was not aware that genies were trapped in lamps. So that's why it made sense for him to wish that he wanted to be a genie, because he wanted the same powers to do whatever he wanted. He was not there originally when Genie did the whole spiel as to what he was.
Or, if anything, why not, I wish to have the power of a genie. And then he makes him a genie. There's your gray area.
Proper gray area.
How do you get the power of a genie? By being a genie. You didn't say don't make you a genie, you know? I think they thought that maybe it was too hard for little kids to understand, so they made it more explicit. But it wasn't too hard for little kids to understand. We all got it just fine the first time around.
I feel like the way that Jafar had said it in this movie, the genie shouldn't have made him a genie. He said more powerful than a genie, which means not a genie.
Yeah, he also specifically, he said more powerful than a genie, not more powerful than you. Like, if he had said make me more powerful than you, then making him into a just more powerful genie is...
Nope, he generically said a genie. So that means he should be whatever is above the genie.
Yeah, I don't...
Although this genie seemed to have a whole lot more agency.
I guess he said the most powerful being on Earth. Make me the most powerful being on Earth could be a genie, just another genie. Like, if genies are the most powerful beings.
Did he say on Earth?
I think he did. I don't know. I don't remember. Do you want to know why? Because this movie is, more than anything else, forgettable. Like, I'm looking at our notes from the film, from the day we saw it, and I had forgotten about huge parts of this because this movie is totally forgettable. Like, I remember a couple of the charming Will Smith, Mina Masood scenes. I remember some of the irritating, unnecessary love story between Genie and the Handmaiden, which I know you liked, but I found to be just, again, padding for runtime. But other than that, I remember very little of this movie. It was just...
I know, I'm trying to rack my brain for what, because I remember it while I was sitting in the movie. I was trying to remember exactly what scenes that I was irritated with them constantly using the gray area as an excuse. I think one, which I think happened in the original movie, was when Aladdin was drowning in water. He's like, I guess we're going to have to use another gray area. Had him sign his name to the wish and then granted it for him. But then also how long his original wish lasts.
Yeah.
Which he said make him a prince, and then the genie still did a whole bunch of little stuff to help Aladdin. Like temporarily add his country to the map while Jasmine was trying to look for it on her maps. I'm already forgetting the other little stuff that he did.
He did a lot to help Aladdin.
Oh yeah, sending the carpet to the frozen tundra that he was banished to.
That wasn't even a wish. That was just a favor.
Yeah, how much power does the genie have again? I thought he only explicitly could do what you asked him to do, and it got used up as a wish.
It's funny because in their effort to over-explain, they've actually introduced more loopholes. Like, this gray area thing. Why not just, Aladdin could have just wished, I want you to make me a prince for as long as it takes for me to be able to talk to Jasmine and have her fall in love with me. Like, that covers it, you know?
Yeah, it does.
But, I don't know. I think they either thought we were too smart for the way the original movie was, or too dumb, or possibly both at the same time. I'm looking at our notes. Why don't we talk about the choreography?
The tiny stuff, not plot heavy stuff, more tiny things that bothered us in the movie.
The choreography was super weird. It was super weird. They added a bunch of hip-hop elements, which I found very strange and anachronistic. And they only did it because they had cast Will Smith. It was weird.
The biggest hip-hop star the world has ever seen.
Oh yeah, it's the Millennium. Like having him beatbox in the middle of Friend Like Me. Why? What was wrong with the scatting that Robin Williams did? Like why did he need to beatbox other than he's Will Smith and he physically can beatbox?
Differentiate between the genius? Not sure. I personally didn't dislike that part. I was like, okay, they cast Will Smith, so, have him do the Will Smith stuff. Sure.
The reason I didn't like it is because it felt out of place. Just like with Speechless, it pulled me out of the movie. Like it felt deeply out of place for the song.
Since it was a minor change, it didn't bother me as much. Plus, I forgot what I was going to say, but...
Like, for example, the end of Ali Ababwa, that didn't bother me.
I liked that.
I thought it was good.
I liked the breakdown they did. I was like, oh yes, this is like, I can like body roll to this.
Running it in half tempo was good. That was a good change. But I didn't feel the same about beatboxing in Friend Like Me. It felt weird. Because running Ali Ababwa in half tempo with more bass still felt like the same song. It was just the beatboxing was so strange. It just tried to pull me out. Let's talk about the way they edited all of the dancing and choreography.
By speeding everything up to make it match the beats.
I don't know whether they sped it up or whether they were cutting frames out from the middle of it, but it was very bizarre, and I did not like it.
They did it throughout the entire movie, from the very beginning, during the chase scene, which I guess I can understand the chase scene. It's hard to make that match the music beats because they're doing stunts. They're just trying to go through the...
Did it need to match the music beats, though? I don't think it did. I think they could have just run in normal time. Now, for chase scenes, I think there's an argument to be made that cutting out frames works. Because in Mad Max Fury Road, George Miller does this thing where he cuts out these frames in order to increase this like feeling of anxiety because it feels weird, it feels choppy and strange and too fast. The problem is they do this in every song. Every piece of choreography has a weird like sped up / frame removed feeling to it, and it's bizarre.
Except Speechless.
Yeah, Speechless was just a lot.
See, even the Speechless song and choreography didn't match the rest of the the movie. They didn't randomly speed parts up.
No, they slowed it down and had her make people disappear in her fantasy or something. It was weird.
I don't know.
Whatever they did with the frames was just bizarre. It was an odd choice, and it kept happening. Happened in Friend Like Me, happened in Prince Ali, happened in A Whole New World. It just kept happening. I don't understand why. And they did it during the parkour moments as well. All it served to do was make the parkour look CGI. Like, I don't know if it was real or if it was CGI, but it looked CGI. I can tell you it looked fake as heck. Whatever they did looked bad.
I think if they'd done it in a way that was less noticeable, it would have been fine, but these were super obvious. Like, I was like, is it speeding up? Are we like just gonna wish past this? Like, what are we doing?
The first time it happened, I was like, is the projector okay? Is something wrong with our screening? What's happening? But it appeared to be a stylistic choice that the film did intentionally. And then there was that weird Bollywood moment that they tried to do in the middle of the movie.
Only you would have noticed this. I would not have. I've looked at a couple Bollywood films and I was like, it kind of looks like that. So you're sure? Yeah.
For me, for your information, listeners, I am Indian myself. So I'm biased by, a lot. So for me, it was weird. It looked like if someone who didn't know about Bollywood style dancing watched a couple of YouTube videos of Bollywood dancing and then choreographed based on that.
That is where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
By the way, because that's as much experience I have with Bollywood.
But you also didn't make the movie. They could have hired a real choreographer, and they chose not to. This is another part of my irritation with the crew not being of the ethnicity they're trying to represent. Because it was very obvious to me that this was not real Bollywood choreography. This was someone who had Googled Bollywood choreography.
And they had no excuse to not have good choreography too. I'm like, yeah, you're the people behind the movie might not have been of the right culture, but they have specialists that you can hire from anywhere, and they can come and do it for you and then leave.
The moments I'm specifically talking about were not during the songs. So the choreography during Friend Like Me, fine. Choreography during Prince Ali, fine. They had an extraneous moment when Aladdin is attempting to talk to Jasmine at a party where they have them do some Bollywood dancing. And it's very strange because not only have they put her in like this corseted bodice, they then ask her to try and dance in a Bollywood style, which involves a lot of hip movement, which she can't do in a corseted bodice. And so it's weird. It's just super weird. And then they end the movie with this DJ Khaled version of Friend Like Me, and they try to have like a Jai-Ho moment where it's like everybody's dancing, and it's super weird because it's not Bollywood choreography. It's clearly like Bollywood inspired, but it's not Bollywood, and it's very strange. And it is also part of that extra 38 minutes of movie that we did not need.
Once again, I ask, why couldn't they hire specialists just for this one part? Literally, it would have been a day. Pay them their couple $1,000 or whatever, and then move on and have a better scene.
Yeah.
Or a more accurate scene, at least.
Hire one of the many choreographers from Bollywood. Or you don't want to hire someone from Bollywood? Fine. Hire any person who has studied that type of dance.
There are plenty in Hollywood.
For real.
I'm sure.
I'm sure there are plenty of Americans who know that style of dance, be it belly dancing or bhangra or whatever.
It would have been nice if they did bhangra.
They tried. Did you see, she had 8 seconds of something that was almost bhangra dancing, but again, she was wearing a corseted bodice. I understand why they didn't have everybody be all shirtless and midriff bearing. I get it. But you don't have to have a corseted bodice to have a bodice. Oh, it's because the Jasmines were getting harassed in Disneyland.
Because what?
The Jasmines in Disney World were getting harassed.
Oh, but that wouldn't have been her main outfit. It would have been just for this scene so she could actually do the dance. The rest of the scene, she was wearing her normal stuff, and that's the outfit they could have made.
It was all corseted, though. It was all boning. It wasn't corseted, it was boning. All of her bodices were full of boning.
Yeah, just for the dance scene.
You can have a top that goes all the way down that you can dance in that isn't full of boning. Ugh! But yeah, it was bizarre. Between the frame cutting and the bizarre choreography for these extraneous scenes, I don't know. I liked Will Smith's dancing. He was great. I liked... he was fine, but I don't know. It was very strange.
The only dancing part that ever bothered me, which wasn't in your part, was the Friend Like Me part where Aladdin joined in with the choreographer. Oh my God.
Choreography?
Yeah, choreography. That part bothered me. I'm like, why are you joining in? You're supposed to be sitting and watching. Nitpicky, but whatever.
Well, what felt strange is that he wasn't just joining in. They had this moment in Friend Like Me where the genie sort of possessed Aladdin or used puppet strings to make him dance. And
oh, yeah.
It was strange because it looked like they had just subbed in a dance extra, It looked like they just subbed in a completely different person to start dancing. Maybe Meme Namasood can dance like that, I don't know, but it didn't look like him. And I think part of it was that frame snipping, speeding up thing they did.
I didn't notice it during that part.
I did once Aladdin joined in, because he was going so fast, and they were pulling the frames, or speeding it up, whatever it was they did. It was weird.
Maybe he actually can't dance and they did that to make it look better.
Well, why not just hire someone who looks like him to be the dance extra? It was such a wide shot anyway, you couldn't tell. But you're right, all of these things were very odd. And in the minutia of the minutia, the accents.
Yes, I was going to mention that earlier and forgot to bring it up when you were talking about how the rest of how they brought in actual brown people for the extras, but not for the main cast. I was like, and also they're the ones that also had the accent while everyone else spoke with perfect English.
They did give all the extras Arabian accents, and all the main characters had American accents. Except for, you guessed it, the villain.
Yeah, of course.
Even when they made everybody brown, they still made the villain browner than the rest. As you do. Now, this is extremely strange due to the fact that Naomi Scott is English. If the accents don't matter, why have her do an American accent? Let her do her native accent. Why is she doing an American voice?
I don't know, the same reason why they had a lot of diversity in just the background people, because they can.
There was a particular inconsistency that I noticed that bothered me personally, and it was that whenever they said Agrabah, they would say Agrabah. They would pronounce it in what would be the fictitious correct way. But then they would always say Aladdin, just like that, Aladdin, rather than Aladdin or Aladdin or any number of ethnic sounding pronunciations. And so for me, this wouldn't bother me except for they would say them in the same sentence and it would be like, Aladdin, when did you get to Agrabah? And it just felt very inconsistent and odd because it was clearly a directorial note to have them say Agrabah, but then they also kept them saying Aladdin.
It's because if they tried to pronounce his name any other way, people would not recognize that they're talking about Aladdin.
Who's this Aladdin person?
Yeah, who's this Aladdin they spoke of the movie?
I'm here to see Aladdin.
I don't hear Aladdin at all.
But then why not just say Agrabah? Come on. It's a fake place. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters.
I like in the notes how you just say DJ Khaled in all caps.
Okay, the ending scene with their weird Jai-Ho moment opens with DJ Khaled because it's the DJ Khaled remix of Friend Like Me, and I really could not.
I know, I feel bad because I completely missed that part because I was super distracted by the people next to us.
Yes, we were in the theater together and the people next to us appeared to be in flagrante at the end of the movie. Now, mind you, we didn't notice anything throughout the entire runtime.
They were very good at being quiet.
Yeah, but at the end, when the lights came up, suddenly... it was bizarre.
I was like, is she on his crotch? Like, what was happening over there?
But as a result, you missed the very obvious DJ Khaled. And it wasn't even during the credits.
And then more interesting things were happening in the real world.
You're right. It was wild. But why don't we... I can't believe she was fully in his lap, Nia. I really couldn't. They were so quiet the whole time, and then the lights come up and she's still in his lap. Oh God.
If I were to ever do this, which to anyone listening who I know, I've never done such a thing. You know when the movie is about to end, so you get up and make yourself proper again.
I'm saying...
In a kid's movie, no less. Like, come on.
I know, right? Why don't we close out our discussion of Aladdin with some things that we actually liked about the movie?
On the top of the list, it's Will Smith.
I thought Will Smith was great. I, as you've heard, have a lot of problems with this movie. But my problems were not Will Smith. I thought he was fine. He was charming. He was funny. He was phoning it in just a little bit, but in the good way. This was Men in Black 2 kind of phoning it in. Still funny. Still charming.
Yeah, I liked Will Smith. The reveal at the end that he ended up with the servant girl and that was a mother. I was like, oh, I like that. Good. Not really twist ending, but like surprise ending for me at least.
I assume that was the ending. Personally, for me, I found it to be a bit extraneous because it was part of that extra 40 minutes of runtime that we didn't need in this movie. But, I guess, love interest's got a love interest or whatever.
Yeah, and I feel like I was scared that Will Smith was going to try to hit the same feeling and beats as Robin Williams, and he didn't. He Will Smithed it.
Yes.
It became his own character.
Yes.
Or I guess the typical Will Smith character, which some people have issues with that because I guess technically he does kind of do the same thing each time. But it works and I like it each time, so...
It works this time. No, I agree. I think this movie would have been far worse if he had tried to hit all of Robin Williams's beats and cues. Because then it would have just come off as a weird, half-baked, not Robin Williams. So I really liked what he did. And I think he had a lot of chemistry with the next person on our likes list, which is Mina Masood. He and Mina just jived really well together.
Good buddy cop system with them.
Yes. And I think Mina Masood did a great job. I think he was a great Aladdin. He was funny. He was charming. His singing voice was good. Not that that mattered. If he had lip synced to somebody else's voice, it would have been fine too. What I liked is his ability to be charming and also be funny and to self-deprecate and to be nervous and cute. And I think he played off Aladdin very well.
Yeah, all the comedy things hit.
Yes.
With me.
For me as well. Every joke that they added for him and Genie totally landed for me. They had a whole bit about how Jasmine was had to wash her cat, and he was like, cats clean themselves, what? And that was hilarious. He and the Genie had this whole interplay of when Aladdin was
trying to woo Jasmine at first,
doing a bad job of it too.
That banter was great though, between the Genie being shamed and Aladdin
screwing up repeatedly. It was so funny though. It was charming. I think Mina Masood's comedy totally landed. I think he was funny and charming and adorable as Aladdin. Costume-wise, I really loved the look of Aladdin's costume, like after he's Prince Ali. That outfit, dope. I loved it.
And if I have to say anything about the costumes, if I ignore the fact that they were trying to represent all of the Middle East, the costumes by themselves, I liked the way they looked.
You know what? They were pretty. I cannot deny.
They were pretty. That's what I liked about them.
I can't deny that they were pretty. They were. But they just weren't Middle Eastern or Indian or Pakistani in any way. And that's what bothers me.
No,
it's not that they were ugly. It's that they weren't what they were supposed to be. And then finally on our list, the set pieces were awesome. I really liked the set pieces. I thought the CGI city of Agrabah was beautiful. I thought the Cave of Wonders was dope. I loved Aladdin's house. I mean, his, like, homeless house. The place where he was living.
Yeah, that added detail. I was like, oh, that's dope. I'm like, I could even imagine the old Aladdin. I'm like, yeah, that's a cool place to live. They made it look run down, but still homey-ish, still cleverly hidden.
The set design was fantastic. The people who did set work were my hero. Like, the Cave of Wonders was amazing, well constructed. It looked great. That's
where the real money was at in this movie, the set pieces.
Yeah.
Not on Aladdin's wig. They found that at like Goodwill and were like, yeah, this kind of looks right, and put it on him.
Poor Mina Masood. Poor baby. Whatever they did to his hair they did a bad thing. Bad.
Now that I'm thinking about it more, I just think it's funny. When you point it out in the movie, you're like, is that his natural hair pattern where it's just super curly in the back?
And it was hard because they didn't trim it really short where you couldn't see his natural hair pattern. And so you could see. And it was super anachronistic. His poor hair.
Yeah, because my man's got 3C hair and it was not, maybe he sweated it out, but it was super curly during the little dancing scenes.
Yeah. The back of his head was curling and the top was something. That was not his, it was something. They either straightened it or put a wig on, and whatever they did, it looked weird.
We'll add Aladdin's wig to the list of likes just for the amusement factor.
It was kind of funny. But overall, I would give this movie...
Are we also grading this one?
Yes. I would give this movie a C for effort. They really tried. The parts of this movie that hit for me were the parts where they adapted the animated version into live action. The set pieces, the songs, stuff like that, I liked. But where it went wrong was where they really thought that they could improve upon the original script and then didn't have the guts to do anything real.
I'm going to also put it at a C. It almost could have made it to, well, honestly, it could have made it to like a solid B if they had done the Jasmine thing correct. And I would have happily given it a B amidst all its other issues because I'm like, oh, they actually made the change. But I'm lowering it to a C out of my own disgust.
This isn't about faithfulness. They didn't have to be exactly faithful to the original material. If they had changed the end and given Jasmine more agency or a bigger role in being the hero, that's good. That's a good positive change. And so I agree. If they had done that, if they had really made her the hero, I would be up there even B+. But instead, the change they gave to her was a nothing change. That if you cut out of the movie, nothing changes. It didn't add anything to the movie. It was just a waste of time.
And I think you can't give it anything higher.
Yeah, I can't give it anything higher than a C.
Honestly, the only reason it's a C is because of Mina Massoud and Will Smith. Increased it back up from the low D it was gonna sit at.
And the set pieces. I really did love the set pieces. I loved the Cave of Wonders. I thought that was gorgeous. I liked A Whole New World. That scene was beautiful. Like, it was beautiful. The CG work that they did on creating this landscape was fantastic. It's just the rest of it.
Yeah, and honestly, when they make changes to movies, I'm always hoping they make changes because I don't want to sit through the same movie that I saw 20 years ago. I'd like you to have some creative change added to your movie, whether you change the ending or the theme, something. But if it makes a movie for the worse, I am going to penalize you heavily for it and talk all sorts of mess. I'm like, you should have just left it the way it was if your ideas sucked.
I agree. They didn't need to be so precious with the ending. They could have given Jasmine a lot more of a role. And that would have served to be an even bigger statement of her agency and her value as a character. But alas, here we are.
I feel nothing towards this character, just like I felt nothing towards this character originally.
Yep. They didn't make her not a nothing sandwich. She's still a nothing sandwich.
Oh, and I had this thought about 10 minutes back when we were talking about Will Smith as the genie. Do you think they still would have cast Will Smith as genie if Robin Williams was still here?
That's tough. Because it's hard to say where Robin Williams would have been in his life, like with his mental health journey and stuff, whether he would have been capable of providing that same frenetic energy. I know that I, for one, were he still with us, would have been pissed if they cast Will Smith instead of him. But it's hard to say.
I was thinking since they used him for so much of the promotion in the original Aladdin, maybe they would have asked him to reprise his role. Once I think him and Disney made up, right?
They did.
After all that.
Yeah. He was in Aladdin 2, or what? He was in the show or something.
Right. No, yeah, he did come back eventually. But maybe they would have asked him to come back again.
I think that character is Robin. It's Robin's stand-up. It's made for him.
Oh, yeah.
And so to give it to somebody else would have been odd.
A slap in the face again.
Maybe not that, but just it would have been strange because I don't know about you. I would have been like, why am I watching some other guy perform Robin Williams' routine when I could watch Robin Williams perform Robin Williams' routine?
Yes, act like a complete nut, but in cartoon form. Or I guess in this case, it would have actually been him.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? That would have been real entertaining.
That would have been great. Robin Williams has great stage presence. He could have done it live. He could have easily done it live.
Oh, yeah, that would have been awesome.
He's got fantastic... His physical comedy is just as funny. Like, he's great. It's hard to say because it's been so many years now. There's no way to predict where he would have been mentally and health-wise. And
that is true. But that's the only theoretical thought I had.
Here's the thing. I would not have been mad. Robin Williams can be the one white guy in this movie. Cancel Billy Magnuson. Sorry, Billy. You were amazing. You were hilarious, but you were a time filler. You were just padding out the runtime. You provided nothing to the story. And you know what? Same with Jasmine's thing. She provided nothing to the story. They just used her to pad out the runtime. And that's why it didn't land. Because if you cut it, nothing changes.
And was there really any reason to add padding time?
I don't know. I don't know why they had to pad the runtime. A 90-minute movie is still a feature film. I don't know why. I don't know.
Well, I guess not in this time where, we're getting 3-hour movies now.
Yeah. But yeah, I think a C. C for effort. They really tried. So now we're moving on to Trailer Corner, where we watch trailers so you don't have to. We're going to be talking about a bunch of trailers today, and quite a few I'm actually super excited for. So let's get started with Men in Black International.
I know we talked about Will Smith earlier, but for Men in Black, Will Smith is the staple for Men in Black for me. So I don't know how I feel about having a movie with him not in it. I do like the two actors in it, actors and actress, but yeah, I don't know.
I know, I feel the same. Because here's the thing. I love Chris Hemsworth. Yep. I love Tessa Thompson. I love Liam Neeson. I love Emma Thompson. Tessa and Emma Thompson. But Men in Black, the first one, was that perfect storm of Tommy Lee Jones playing a little bit of a caricature of himself, but in a charming way, and Will Smith playing
Being Will Smith.
Yeah.
Playing Will Smith.
Doing the Fresh Prince thing.
Yes, which that's all we want him to do in every movie.
What I'm worried about is that Men in Black has a very particular ethos to it. It's got that particular feeling, and it was that feeling that they were unable to replicate in Men in Black 3 that made it so bad, because they were trying to use the same moments and copy-paste it and see if they could get it together, but it was the feeling of Men in Black, the feeling of seeing something new and wonderful and entering that world. That's what we are chasing. And I don't know if this movie is going to do it.
You know what? Maybe it will have it will pave its own history, its own different feeling of Men in Black. It could be good in its own different way. That's what I'm hoping.
I agree. Because Tessa Thompson is funny, and
Yes.
Chris Hemsworth is
It's
funny.
Yes.
And they're funny together, Thor Ragnarok.
Yep.
So clearly they can be good. The question is whether or not the script is going to let them play. Because if you look at Men in Black 3, the magic was gone because the joy was gone out of it. It was just a rehash.
Well, let me ask you, with the jokes that were in the trailer, how did you think they hit?
I think some of them worked.
Okay.
And some of them didn't.
Okay.
For example, the joke with the little alien who pledged his life to Tessa Thompson's character,
Yes.
that didn't play. I didn't find that particularly funny.
I was hoping that wasn't going to be a recurring character, but it looks like it was. I think I would have been okay with it just being
Just
that one off. But
Like-
it's like a little mini side character, like they had the dog whose name I cannot
Frank.
remember. Frank, yes.
Yes.
It's not going to be as good as Frank. I already don't like him. He's really annoying.
Yeah. But the jokes that did work for me were like the moment where Tessa Thompson was looking at Emma Thompson and was like, "You look good in a suit," and like that was funny. And the moment where Tessa Thompson comes up to Chris Hemsworth at his desk and he's passed out, and he's like, "Yeah, you know, I'm just taking my mid-afternoon siesta," and she's like, "It's 11 a.m." That I found funny. The moments where those two are just vibing and
Yes,
riffing.
banter. Their
Yes.
banter is going to be good. I do not doubt that the banter parts are going to be fine. That probably might be the highlight of the movie. Don't know about the rest of it.
The story is, you know,
I don't even remember
they
what the
all
story
look.
was.
There's a new alien threat, but they can be disguised as anyone. You know, basic stuff. It's Terminator.
And that also sounds like another plot from Marvel. I forgot what were the body snatch? No, that wasn't from Marvel. It was in Captain Marvel.
The scroll could do
Yeah,
it.
the scroll could do it. That's what it was. The scroll taking over. I'm like, oh look, it's another one of it's that again.
Since Invasion of the Body Snatchers, that plot has been done over and over and over again. And yes, I think there are ways to do it well. I think Terminator was awesome. I think The Matrix did its kind of variant of it awesome. Not that The Matrix did Body Snatchers, but like anyone can turn into these guys kind of thing. I think it can be done well, but I also think it can be done very poorly and very boringly. And it depends on who they have playing the body snatcher types. Because if you take, for example, take Captain Marvel. Ben Mendelsohn was funny and charming all the way through. Whether he was in Skrull makeup or human makeup, it worked. Or if you take the Terminator, the Liquid Terminator was dope no matter who they were formed into.
Yeah.
You know, that worked. But this could just be a boring, faceless villain that we don't get to see ever. But I think the banter is going to work. I love seeing the guns. The car is working for me. I think if this movie shines, it will be in the banter between Hemsworth and Thompson. That's where this movie is going to work.
The characters. I think they did a really good job casting. And hopefully they did a good job writing.
If it goes right, it will be the casting that makes it work. But I'm honestly willing to be excited. I've been burned before many times, and I know a lot of people no longer get excited for adaptations and remakes and sequels. I get hurt every time because every time I'm willing to be like, this is gonna be good. Yeah, it's gonna be good. And often it's not, but I'm willing to give it a chance. I'm willing to be excited because I love those actors and I love the property, and I think there are unique and fun new things you can keep doing with it as long as they don't try to just copy paste Men in Black 1, because they could never.
At least based off the trailer, I don't think I got that feeling that it was trying to copy one.
Me
It seemed like it
neither.
was trying to be its own thing and use its actors to its advantage.
Right. I think the bits that they took from the first one were moments like the gun or the don't press the red button. And I thought that gag worked really well for me. Mind you, they spoiled it by putting it in the trailer, but that gag was quite funny because
Yeah,
it
they
was,
could have left out what it did, at least.
well, it turned on, she pressed the wrong red button and it turned on the wipers instead of activating ultra
okay.
mode. Which, that's a great way to call back to the original.
Yes, it is.
Without copying the original. Like, the joke in the original was that Will Smith wasn't ready, and so he was unseatbelted and falling all over the car. And in this case, is they were ready, but she doesn't know which one's the actual button. And I think if that's the kind of jokes they're going for that makes you remember the original but doesn't strictly copy the jokes, then I'm all for it.
I've forgotten about that part in the trailer. Yes.
And their guns, like the hubcap turning into a... I thought that was cool. That's the kind of like little like, oh, alien technology, the cute little callbacks that I like.
You talking about that makes me feel a little bit better, because I was not going into this talking about it at the beginning. I didn't feel as confident, but now I feel a little bit more excited about this movie.
I told you, I'm willing to be burned over and over again.
Same with me in anime movie adaptations, although they're gonna screw it up every time. I know in my heart, but I'm like, I'm gonna try to enjoy it.
But I'm gonna do my best. I'm excited anyway. It's not gonna be good, but that doesn't stop me from wanting it. We'll see how this movie turns out. So let's talk about Brightburn. So as we're recording this, Brightburn came out 2 days ago, and the reviews are coming in...
not good.
Yikes.
And let me put this as a disclaimer. I only heard from my neighbor. He said he'd give it like a 2.
Okay.
I don't know what's that. I have to assume it's maybe out of a 5. That's still not good, whether it's out of a 10 or a 5. I was hoping it'd be a good thriller, a good bad version, or not like an evil version adaptation of, how Superman could have gone wrong. And because I don't like goody two-shoes Superman, I was all over this. I don't like him at all. So this kind of burn on what he's left on American culture of being America's hero. I was super excited about this movie, but what he said just makes me be like, oh God, it's going to be one of those.
The Metascore on Metacritic is 46 right now, but IMDb has it at a 6.6 out of 10. So it looks like critics aren't liking it, but viewers are. Now, I like Superman. This is where we disagree. I think I like the idea of Superman as a hero who could have chosen to do whatever he wanted, to run just buck wild and no one could have stopped him, and he chose goodness. And my issue with Brightburn is the nature versus nurture, and this is saying it's in his nature to be evil. I mean, it's my issue with a lot of evil kid movies. It's like they're saying it's in his nature to be evil, to have power is to be evil kind of thing. And you find this with a lot of little kid horror movies, because that you have to. That's the plot.
Little kids are creepy.
They're terrifying. And maybe you're right. Like, I don't know. What if you gave a little kid superpowers? They wouldn't be able to help themselves.
Little heathens.
I mean, especially at a young age, when you haven't developed your sense of empathy yet, if you had superpowers, it could get bad. Imagine young Clark Kent throwing a temper tantrum and just laser eye, But there's a difference between a temper tantrum and evil murderer. Now, mind you, I still love this premise. I love the idea of it because I'd love to see the character taken a different route.
Agreed.
And while I like Superman, I like the idea of like, but what if he just didn't care?
Which DC happens to be so good at.
Yeah.
Which is why I like DC better, because they do a whole bunch of crap with their characters.
The whole thing about, if you look at Batman and Superman's interactions, it's Bruce is like, but what if he lost his mind and decided to kill us all? And everyone's like, he would never. And Bruce is like, yes, but what if he did?
The plot of injustice.
Yeah. The plot of injustice, the plot of Dark Knight Returns. Like, Bruce has plans. But I want this to be good. But on the other hand, horror movies are often middling. Even the ones we like. I like Insidious a lot.
I do too.
I thought it was great. But even that, if you look at just objective quality,
Yeah, I have a very small amount of thriller/horror films that have actually terrified me.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them aren't even American.
Well, the
which is one of the
Japanese
issues.
know what
Oh, God.
they know what they're
That
doing.
one was so creepy. And I need to look up the name of it before we talk about it, because I liked it, but I couldn't. I was glad I was watching in the middle of the day.
For me, I choose specifically to watch horror movies that are more demon-y, possession-y, because the horror movies that are about serial killers freak me out too much because I know they're all based on real serial killers. Like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, based on a real guy.
Love those.
You like Saw?
I don't like Saw because I don't like gratuitous blood and gore.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes me feel uncomfortable with...
I specifically cannot handle watching people be tortured.
Me neither.
My experience with Game of Thrones was so colored by the fact that they made me watch Theon Greyjoy get tortured on screen, because it was at that point that I disengaged from the story entirely. And so now that it's over and people are like experiencing feelings, I've already disengaged because I cannot handle watching people get tortured. I prefer stuff like Brightburn and Insidious, where it's demonic demonic. And oftentimes, those movies are just going to be kind of bad because definitionally they're a little campy. You have to have there's a demon possession and he's showing up, or this superpower kid is murdering people and it's scary,
Yeah, but I know there's a good way to do it, and I can't think of a really good example of one outside of I do like Insidious. So Insidious would be one of my examples, but I'm trying to think of one that's like exceptional.
Poltergeist. Poltergeist is kind of the gold standard. But even,
Maybe.
I don't know about you, but when I watch Poltergeist now, it's not scary. Poltergeist now doesn't scare me as much. It's creepy, but not scary.
Which I'm down for a good creep fest too.
Or, I liked The Conjuring a lot.
You know what movie creeped me out, and I don't feel like other people haven't liked the movie as much, but It Follows. That creeped me out only because you could never see when the monster was there. It was disguised as someone. It was someone from someone else's past following you back. Or I think specifically your past.
Okay.
I know it was the allegory for sexually transmitted diseases, but
which is
like
so dumb.
I thought it was kind of interesting to put it like that, but like it creeped me out.
I think you're right. I think it's a creepy concept. I thought Hereditary was super creepy. I know you're still on the fence about it. You haven't decided how you feel.
It's because he jumped out the window and I thought it was so goddamn hilarious, and it like took me out of the rest of that movie.
Well, I mean, luckily that happens within the last 3 minutes of the movie.
I know, but literally I was like, oh my god, this bitch is about to jump out the window. Oh my god, he jumped out the window. That's exactly how I reacted.
That's fair. Did you watch it in theaters?
I did.
Okay.
Insidious did that too. I think it was the second or third one where they threw the pot at her head. Yeah. Thought that was freaking hilarious. It also happened at the end of the movie, thank God, but it took me out of the rest of it. I wasn't like nervous or scared anymore. It was funny.
Well, I think Hereditary, Ari Aster did it intentionally because you go to the end and the cult people are all there and Charlie, or the demon, whose name I forget, but that's now inhabiting his body, isn't scared and they're okay with it. And so I feel like it may have been an intentional choice. It also may have been, no, this kid is foolish. He's just gonna run for his life. He's just gonna flee. Which I empathize with a lot, because Lord knows if I was in a horror situation, I'd be, whoop!
I wouldn't even be in that horror situation. What the fuck is happening in this house? We're leaving. It might not even be the house, it might be the person.
I gotta move.
Divorcing that person, cutting that person off as a friend. If it's my kid, It was her
kid, so...
It's my kid. You know what, Mommy's gonna go buy some cigarettes from the store and just never come back. Mom, you don't even smoke. I'm starting now.
Well, let's be honest, it wasn't her kid, it was her mom, so just bye, Mom. See you, Grandma.
Bye, Mom.
Gotta go. I mean, it started with letting the mother breastfeed your child. I really wish my mother would. She'd be out of my life forever. We're not talking about Hereditary now.
Oh, Jesus Christ. We got super...
As usual.
Yeah, it's fine.
Movies like Brightburn can be a little campy, and so I'm willing to give it grace, because oftentimes critics watch the camp and they know objectively it's not a good movie, and so they have to rate it as such. But sometimes movies that aren't objectively good are charming and funny and enjoyable.
I never listened to the critics, so I literally listened to the people who went to watch it. They're like, I enjoyed it. I'm like, then I will probably find some enjoyment out of this movie.
It depends. Sometimes the critics are right. It depends on what their complaints are. You just have to read critics carefully.
Yes.
If their complaints with Brightburn, it's likely like, this movie is, but it's kind of scary, but it's weirdly executed. This movie relies heavily on the quality of a child actor, and that's always tough. That's always a tough get.
You gotta find that golden child that's just the greatest, soon to be found out great actor of our time.
I mean, many child actors don't make it in adulthood, but are phenomenal as children. Aww. I mean, think about it. Macaulay Culkin didn't really have an adult career. Haley Joel Osment didn't really have an adult career. She's still young, but the girl from Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, yeah.
So far, middling adult career. She was in Little Miss Sunshine. She was in Definitely Maybe. Abigail Breslin. She was in August Osage County. She was in Signs. But lately, she hasn't been in a ton of big things. So oftentimes you find actors that were incredible as little children are fine as adults.
And I haven't seen this kid I haven't looked either.
I think this is one of his newest.
Okay.
I think this is his debut.
Well, we'll have to watch it ourselves.
We'll
have to make our own judgment. I'm still going to watch it too. Yeah.
Just on a final note, another movie that's probably going to be middling, but still enjoyable, Hobbs and Shaw. I don't expect this movie to be good, but I expect to enjoy myself.
Yeah, I want to see more of The Rock.
Yep.
That's all I'm there for.
More
And
Rock, Jason Statham,
and
Idris
Idris Elba.
Elba.
Honestly,
Yeah.
based off the trailer, I'm kind of more excited for Idris Elba because he looks like he's going to be cool as hell in that movie, and I'm kind of rooting for him to win, even though I know he's not going to.
For me personally, I know a lot of people don't like the Fast and the Furious franchise, and I can't fault them for it. I, for example, the moment a romance movie is kind of bad, I just disengage hard. But with action movies, I am able to shut down my brain a little bit and just enjoy watching things blow up. And I expect that Hobbs and Shaw will be the kind of movie that were I to think about it even a little bit, it would be terrible. But I'm going to disengage my brain and just watch things blow up, and it'll be fun and funny and lots of punching and explosions, and The Rock is cool, and Jason Statham is cool, and Idris Elba is cool. Yeah.
That's all you need. And I did laugh at the part where he was like pulling the helicopter and like
Just
and being on the truck.
muscles.
And I'm like, it's just like that Captain America scene.
Yeah, except for The Rock is way
Okay,
more jacked than
The
Chris
Rock looks
Evans.
like he might actually be able to do that. Maybe.
But stuff like that, I can't fault people for not liking the movie, for people being able to do stuff like that. But I personally knew it was going to be campy nonsense, and so I'm excited for campy nonsense.
I am too. At first, when I first saw the trailer, I was like, oh snap, Idris Elba looks like he's going to be in a cool ass movie. And then it was Hobbs and Shaw, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the kind of movie it's about to be. I see. I understand.
Yup.
That first trailer, though, I really like that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I didn't realize that the
Yeah.
movie he was in was Hobbs
Me
and Shaw
neither.
when I first
Not till
saw
the
it.
very end. I was like, what the hell did I
Wait a
just
second.
watch?
Why is Jason Statham here? Why is The Rock here? What trailer is this? But I'm excited. Personally, I think the Fast and Furious movies got good when they went completely off the rails into nonsensical nonsense.
I agree. I started liking them a lot more, and I'm like, this is just you being like, how much can we make these cars go fast and blow shit up?
Fast car explosion! In the fourth movie, when they used the car to yank the safe out of the wall, that's when you knew it was good. That's how you know! Because for me, the early movies were trying to be serious street racing movies, and it just didn't ring true.
I almost forgot about some of them, with the exception of Tokyo Drift, because bias and...
Street racing wasn't super interesting to me, but nonsense action movie, car fast explosion movie, I'm willing to put in a couple hours, disengage my brain, and just, watch stuff happen.
enjoy the lights and loud music.
Yeah.
I'm all about it too.
For me, it's soothing to watch a movie where I know nothing bad can ever happen.
For
Because
me, I
don't
just
have
like
to
the
be-
hype. It's just constant hype.
Yeah.
Action pumping. You're like, yeah, get him, punch him in the face. I love it.
Yeah. For me, I just, you see a lot of stuff where you're like, something bad is going to happen to someone I like, or it's really anxiety producing, or it makes you sad. And those movies are good. I'm not mad that those movies exist, but it's also sometimes very soothing for me to go watch a movie where I know nothing bad will ever happen to Jason Statham.
Those other movies are tiring, mentally exhausting. You're like,
Yes.
I feel like I just lost someone at the end of this
Yeah,
movie.
I'm
And
crying,
I'm like,
you're
I'm going to go
crying.
home. I'm going to go in my car. I'm going to shed my tears, my very womanly tears, and then move on.
No, it can be tiring. And so watching The Rock and Jason Statham punch a lot, knowing nothing bad can ever happen, ever, it's soothing to me. So I'm excited for Hobbs and Shaw.
I am too.
And that about wraps us up for this edition of Trailer Corner. At least this in-person recording
Yes,
edition
this
of
is
Trailer
in
Corner.
person. I'm recovering from whatever my throat's doing. And we had to come down to lovely Chicago. But
We had to come down to Chicagoland to watch our siblings graduate high school. Okay, so the next time I see you, I won't be seeing you.
I know.
The rest of this episode you'll hear not in person.
Okay, so final thoughts on everything we've talked about today. Aladdin?
Still a C. Will Smith and Mena Massoud saved the movie to a C.
Mina Massoud was great. I'm excited to see what he does with his career. Even Naomi Scott, I'm excited to see where her career goes, but this movie was...
I hope it helped put them on the map so that other people will cast them for something. Like, please cast these people.
I agree. If anything, if this is the film that springboards their careers, then I'm totally happy for them. But just never going to be more than a C.
Yep, a forgettable movie.
I agree completely. Totally forgettable. Trailers?
The trailers, scrolling back up, Men in Black has the potential to be good as long as they make it their own.
I agree.
Similar to what Will Smith did for the Aladdin movie. Make the role your own, have your own feeling of comedy added to it, and it should be fine.
And honestly, I think with Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson, they're gonna do just that. So I can only hope that it's good.
Yeah, they worked well in Ragnarok, and they will work well, given the right direction, in this.
Hobbs and Shaw, still probably gonna be bad, but I'm still gonna enjoy the heck out of it.
Yeah, it's going to be hot garbage, but it's going to be fun hot garbage. We aren't expecting much from that, but it's going to be a mindless movie that we're expecting. We're not looking for like scholar-like material from that.
I'm not going into that movie to look for the next Shawshank. I'm just here for a good time.
Yep, I'm here for explosions, the big rock doing what the big rock does.
I'm here for Idris Elba being super hot and Jason Statham being in the movie and being hot. And look, I think Jason Statham's hot. I know I have a problem. I know I have a white bread problem, but here we are.
You do.
I know. It's a disease, but here we are. The Rock is going to be amazing. It's going to be the best trash of the summer.
We can hope.
Yes, there's a possibility it's not fun and it's just trash. That would be terrible. I hope it's fun trash.
Yeah, you couldn't even do fun correctly. What can you do correct?
There are plenty of movies that are just trash, not fun trash, so, you know.
Transformers tried to be fun trash. I mean, I think the first one succeeded, and after that, I didn't care.
I would completely agree. I think the first one was the perfect amount of fun trash, and everything else was just hot garbage. And finally, Scary Stories. I'm excited. At the very least, it's going to be deeply nostalgic.
It will be nostalgic. I gotta find out where my Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books are, just so I can be haunted by the horrifying artwork again before I go into this movie.
Nothing they can do with a CG is ever going to be as terrifying as those illustrations.
No, those illustrations made the I guess atmosphere I was looking for while reading. Like, I was creeped out. All of it was gross, grotesque. And the stories, I'd have to reread them because it's been a while, but I remember that them by themselves were also kind of creepy. They're like, I'm trying to think of like a good one that like wasn't formalized into a book, but like had a scary feeling to it.
The spider one?
Yeah. I didn't like that one. And I think the meat grinder one where it was just the dude's arm holding up the mixed meat of human flesh on a fork. That was more grotesque though, but it made me uncomfortable.
Oh, you know what the scariest illustration for me always was? It was the scarecrow. Because it's so vague that I'm like, in my mind, I'm filling in the blanks to be all creepy.
No, you're right. The scarecrow one. Dude, I need to open these books up and like reminisce because I don't remember anymore.
This movie is just going to be nostalgia, the film. But, you know,
if they
I'm here for it.
Tell me the story, I'll be happy.
Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of In My Feelings.
And we'd like to thank you for listening. If you want to comment on this episode or give us suggestions, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter, also known as Twitter, at In My Feelings Pod, and Facebook and YouTube at In My Feelings Podcast. Feel free to also comment on our SoundCloud, and don't forget to rate us on iTunes or whatever app you use for your podcasting needs. This has been In My Feelings with Nia.
And Becca. Bye.
Bye.